Please have a seat in our panel discussion on the stage. Their names are, mic on. So whoever is in the room, we have Mr. Pravash Day, Chintan Sareen, I can't read the copy actually. Chief, something in Chief US-India Blockchain Council. Chintan Sareen, CEO and co-founder of IFAH Labs, and Ruchi Dana, President and COO, and we have Martha Payar, founder and group MD, and Bibin Babu. Last but not least, we have Anvita Varnche. I'd like to call upon those names to please have a seat on the stage so we can start our panel discussion, which is about virtual care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll resume with the session, and I believe our last panelist will be arriving soon, so you can start. You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ruchi. I did my MBBS from India and then my MD from India, and after that I was at Stanford for my MBA. And the reason for that was when I was in medical college, I was working on a lot of low-cost medical devices, but I never got the chance to actually commercialize those devices. I was happy with presenting papers, publishing papers, getting university grants to travel across the world and publish my papers. But even the best professors at medical colleges in India, they don't know anything about business. So that's the reason I went for my MBA. And at Stanford, there's a Stanford Biodesign program in which there are MBA students, PhD students, doctors, and engineers who come together and solve for unmet clinical needs. So that's when I got reintroduced to medical devices industry, and now we are investing into medical devices, mainly robotics and AI. So I'll pass it on to the panelists. Pravash, can you introduce yourself?
You hear me? Hi everyone. So myself Pravas, I'm actually heading the US-India Blockchain Council. So just to give you a brief why blockchain and where the healthcare comes in, it's very much interrelated if you talk about the technology integration to the industry. So I started actually getting involved particularly in healthcare when I was doing my MBA, and we did a case study with NHS. Particularly when you talk about the PGs in UK, you have to go to first PGs, get the permission, and then after go to the NHS different hospitals. And it's very difficult to find who are the best hospitals available, who are the best practitioners are there, as well as getting the consultant who are free. And if you look at the UK ecosystem, so normally you are in the waiting time like 20-25 doctors till the time you get the appointment. So that is where we actually disrupted the the healthcare industry at NHS in the UK. And when I came back to India, I was involved in the startup policy of Gujarat. And there are a few startups I interacted what they are doing and how the technology can play a major role, particularly when we talk about streamlining the services or even talking about the transaction payment gateway, as well as getting the right kind of people. And that is where my focus is. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chintan Sareen, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Exceed Labs. We are a technology company based out of Dubai with our head office in Delhi. We have been in the tech domain since last 8 years and have been working in software development majorly since last 6-7 years. And intentionally what we wanted to do was always work across different industries and domains, because generally technology companies of our size and scale usually focus at one particular industry. The big reason for that is that in today's world, technology or an innovation in one particular industry has a potential to be used in a different industry. So as of now, we are working in software development, and we have also since last 1 year been working on AI, ML, blockchain, as well as our in-house IoT and robotics division. Along with that, Exceed as a group has an investment wing where we do investments, and currently Dubai has a portfolio of around 21 investments that we have done. And on personal level, I have 7 investments across different industries. So yeah, that's me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anvita Washne. Hello, everyone. I'm Anvita Washne. I'm a co-founder of Dubai Angel Investors, which we seek to invest into early-stage startups across MENA region, including healthcare. Previously, I was the ex-CEO of Dubizzle and OLX from Middle East and Africa. And prior to that, I'm co-founder of an e-commerce company called Lazada in Southeast Asia, and we exited to Alibaba, sold to Alibaba. And my background has been in technology. So I did my computer engineering from India and MBA from INSEAD Business School. And yes, I'm quite active also in investments along with Middle East and Africa into Southeast Asia and India too.
That's great. So, Anvita, why don't we start with you? Can you briefly talk about the main healthcare startups that you come across, and did you choose any to invest into?
Yes, absolutely. So what I see in healthcare startups is a few different kind of segments. So of course you have companies like, Practo, which is coming in terms of the doctor appointment and reservation, Haldify in dietary and nutrition supplements, in delivering medicines, on demand. So those kind of startups. But I also see a lot of startups which are a bit more deeply technical. If they are in some kind of clinical research or developing, robotics for complex operations. So it really varies. Some of them are more B2B, some of them are B2C, and one of the startups that I invested into recently is called Impact Guru. It's in India, which basically helps people who don't have insurance to raise the crowdfunding for a complex surgery operation, which especially in developing markets, most of the people don't have health insurance. So once you raise the capital, the money straight away goes to the hospital directly. It never goes to the individual. So there's no leak in the system. And from the hospital perspective, they are able to get the funds to operate the patients. So it's a kind of like a system which works with the stakeholders like all the hospitals and institutions. For the people who cannot afford to go for all the surgical thing, they can get all the help. And for all the people who wants to do the charity, it's a foolproof system. So that's one of the startups that I recently did.
Excellent. Chintan, do you want to speak about some of the healthcare startups that you looked at?
For me, healthcare has always been very challenging as an investment opportunity because it's a highly regulated field, and I think a lot of people have faced a similar challenge. However, with the recent development in IoT and robotics, I have explored a couple of startups, and one of the startups we are just about to sign is in a robotic space. So it basically is a delivery system for hospitals where through robots and automation they are able to ensure that right kind of delivery happens, be it medicines, be it any equipment that needs to be delivered from point to point. So for me, majorly it has been in the IoT and robotic space where regulations don't play too much of, don't have too much of a role, and also because I don't understand the technicalities and the back end working of how it is. So yeah, that's majorly my scope of what I'm looking at and what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, so basically, the two startups that we are involved right now in incubating and accelerating. So one of them is called eSwasthya, so which basically takes care of the prescription to digital, and pretty much it's a very simple technology where you can just scan the prescription, put it on the WhatsApp, and then after deliver it to all the stakeholders, so that the medicine, whatever the doctor prescribes, it goes from from the pharmacy store to the end consumer. So if you look at the human cycle that has been involved, most of these delivery guys are not very much literate. So they just get the snapshot of it and they collect the medicine, they pay digitally, and then after it gets distributed. The second is, which is into blockchain space, Asli Medicine. So it's one of the blockchain startups, blockchain healthcare startups, which basically provides the authenticity of the product, particularly manufacturing of the drugs. If you look at India, there is a lot of counterfeits available, and you normally don't know where the manufacturing is happening, where the packaging is happening, and then after a whole supply chain. So when the end consumer gets, a lot of times it's not the right medicine, and sometimes it's very dangerous as well. So this is the past time we are actually trying to, get that very much in a systematic process of using blockchain. The second part is also the payment, and where you see, as there are many stakeholders involved in the whole system, sometimes the payment goes 90 days more than that. So it's also getting the payment in a real time when the transactions takes place. That is where actually we are intervening the blockchain technology into the system.
Excellent. So, in the recent past, we have come across a lot of corporate VCs and strategic investors that are now trying to enter this space. So, since both of you are from like incubator, accelerator backgrounds, I would love to get your opinion on like what are the characteristics that you guys look for in startups, and how can corporate VCs help you out?
Yeah, so for our space, it's more of the validation of the idea. So there are a lot of ideas already there, but basically how you can get a proof of concept, how fast we can get it. So we do a lot of rapid prototyping by organizing hackathons. So the idea guy, the technology, even investors, marketing people, they come and they spend 36 hours under one roof. So they build a prototype. Then after we actually go to the industry and validate that, whether there is a scalability part is there, the technology they are using, is it the real time or is it the necessity next 4 to 5 years or 10 years down the line. Once we have all these tick boxes, then after obviously we go to the investor and say, okay, this has been tested and we need money go to market. But now if you look at India startup ecosystem, there is already money available through Startup India. So initially, almost like 5 to 25 lakhs, the government puts money so that they have a working prototype ready. And once they have that and they have some, market validation as well, they are in the market and they have some consumers signed up, both paid and non-paid. Then after we go to investors and then after ask for the money for the go-to-market and scaling up.
So for early stage startups, usually it starts from friends and family kind of around, wherein they would accumulate some money from their friends and family to start working on the product and probably prepare a MVP. The second stage of that would be, it usually happens through angel investors, through individual investors. So one of the things that a lot of startups, in fact, like I and Pravash work together on a lot of startups. And what we try to do is for early stage startups, we always look at a strategic investor rather than a guy who is just funding them. Because if you look at the background of 80-85% of the startups, so for example, in the MadCon session that we were having before this, somebody raised an important point that in India, according to a government survey, 81 startups fail and they collapse. So a big reason of that is because if you see, a majority of these startup founders are those who maybe are straight out of college or have just 1 or 2 years of experience and want to do something of their own, which is good. But in the end, doing a startup is establishing a business. And there are a lot of elements to making up a business. It's just not about creating a product. It's about going to the market, creating the right brand strategy, creating the right product, doing extensive research, looking at associations, looking at how everything is going to work as a business. So we look at getting people who can strategically help these startups to evolve. They could be from a marketing background or from a sales background or from any background. But for us, it's more important that at an initial stage, there should always be a strategic investor who not just gives money, but also adds value to the business as a thing. And we have realized that out of, I think, 12 startups that we experimented this model on, 8 have actually started generating revenue. And it was very strange that 2 of them actually got onto a break even within 6 months. So that's the kind of investment strategy that we implement on startups.
Sure. Anvita, since you have a background in investing in startups and it goes for a long time, what are the new trends that you're seeing in terms of investors like corporate VCs or like companies with revenue which are trying to share the revenue with the investors? What are the new trends that you're seeing these days, and what are your personal thoughts on these trends?
I mean, as such, trends come and go. It's less about trends, I would say. It's about really going into super niche and solving one particular problem. So one of the things that I've seen with the startups is that they try to boil the ocean, milk the sky, like do everything. And it's a massive problem. You just need to do one problem, right? Solve one problem. And it's really less about the idea or innovation. I would say that, like, you think that you have just came up with a great concept. It's really 90% about execution. And that's where one of the challenges that happens. So I don't know how many of you really know the Terranor story in the audience. It's one of the companies who came up with the invention in Silicon Valley that with the prick of the needle, they can do most of the blood tests. And it caused, so much hype and vision and, from the founders' aspiration, a lot of bubble around it. And the investors kept on pouring money, without seeing the fundamentals of the business. That is it even like, a valid model? Can it happen? And once it kind of reached to a multi-billion valuation, the whole bubble fell off because the product never existed. It was more that fake it till you can make it. So very important that you really understand, right, that you have developed something, first of all, not from what you think is a great idea, but the market needs it, and not try to change the consumer behavior. So for example, one of the startups I also invested into it was about, it's called WonderX, and it's about like when the doctors write the prescription, and everyone talks about data, right? In healthcare, HIPAA compliance and, having the healthcare information system. But there is no significant consolidation in the industry also yet, right? So this startup basically said like the doctors don't change the behavior. They still write with the handwriting, with the pen and paper. And you ask them to give them the iPads or tablets and write the prescription, it doesn't happen. So they developed like, smart pads, right? Which is exactly looks like paper. So whatever you're writing on the paper, it gets reflected back on the data side. So have a copy with the doctor as well as with the patient. You can even record what doctor said. So patient is not trying to kind of think through, okay, doctor said that like, I need to eat 2 tablets with this. So this is just the way that like, they said we cannot change the consumer behavior, but have to kind of adapt and develop something that people can adopt. So from all the, you talk about the VCs and CVCs, it's still healthcare is still in the basic stages. I wouldn't say that like, we go into robotics, AI, but there's still fundamental problems. You go to the hospitals, people are still writing, with pens. There's no consolidation of data, even in a developed market like in UAE. So it's still, we are in the basic stages. Someone like comes up with technology, ease out the process and efficiency, and has to go out through the whole adoption with different stakeholders, whether it's insurance providers, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, several institutions who have to deal with to make these product viable. So it's really a lot about execution.
Sure. I think the lady in the blue top, she had a question.
Boy.
She raised her hand first. Sorry, sir.
Oh,
For me personally, I make sure to mention this on almost every panel that I go to. I won't ever touch e-cigarettes or cannabis. And there are a lot of startups that are coming up in this space. And there's a lot of money in those businesses, but that's something that's against my ethics and morals, and I would never touch like anything related to addictions, tobacco, e-cigarettes, cannabis, even if it's medical marijuana, but I'm strictly against that. So that's my rule.
I think your question is also can mean that, I think, Ruchi, you are actually the right person. So for example, you're developing those robotics kind of machines to do surgery, right? Now, if the surgery fails, all people are coming up with, right, those automated things, right? So what do you do? Who takes the liability in this case? Is the technological provider? Is the doctor, institution? So in that case, if something goes wrong, what happens?
So for that particular issue, what we've done is that in almost all the medical devices company that I see, there's a medical insurance that's involved, and that really takes care of a lot of the business. So like before going into clinical practice, we have to have a medical insurance in place so that if there's any liability, it's the insurance company that has to take care. But again, like we have to make sure to abide by the rules and regulations of the government and the best practices involved. Sure, I think Anvita will answer that, but before that, I think Pravash, you had a concept about blockchain in the pharma industry, right? Maybe you can speak about that.
Yeah, so basically, answering to your question, how basically ethics we can tap. So one is area where you can actually use blockchain technology to basically track everything right from the beginning, from the consultation to prescription to, even the specialist when they are actually looking at the patient and all these things. So that is one thing. The second thing is also the medicines being used in the right manner, and it has been given in a particular time. That's the end consumer wants. So that's the second part. But the most important is actually the technology intervention, who is taking responsibility in the real time. And most of the time when there is complexity in the healthcare, at every level, you need to track it. That is where the technology can help. Also in terms of you're talking about the right people. So now there is also, professional courses like MBA in healthcare. So people not only from MBBS or MD background doing the, professional doctor program are coming to the profession, but they are also management students who have no idea of healthcare. They have been part of the ecosystem as well. And that is where we actually create a stakeholder ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I will try to attempt to answer your question. You're absolutely right that healthcare is the only field where the stakes are much higher because something goes wrong, you are playing with life and death. If, let's say you were into shopping and there is an image matching algorithm, you buy a similar dress, nothing happens even if the accuracy in the AI is 90%. But if you take the same thing in medical devices and and if you are 90% accuracy, it is the patient's life at the stake. And you're absolutely right that because of this risk, what happens is that, from a mindset of the investors, it's also about the return on investment, right? I invest into your company, I expect some returns, and one of the factors is speed to the market. So most of the times investors would keep on pushing the companies, grow revenue, go top line, increase the number of users, increase the number of transactions. But in medical side, and when it comes to investment, you cannot do that. You cannot roll out a product in the market as being a responsible stakeholder or investor if you're not sure of the accuracy to up to, almost 100%, because the liabilities that come with it, is much higher than just losing your capital. So this is a field where, in terms of clinical research, drugs, medical devices, the cycle is much longer. So in the healthcare, you have to be patient that you are investing into it. It can turn out with the probability really wrong. It will also take a long time. But if it comes up, it's really going to be one of those inventions.
So, Manish again. The comment earlier made was 80% of the startups fail. Yeah? I would like to seek a clear differentiation between a startup, MVP, and a product. I think these mushroom development houses, with all due respect, they're pushing the clients, young entrepreneurs, towards this is the MVP. You can go there, and then there will be phase 2, then there will be somewhere we'll do the monetization, and then you will have the right product. So are we really talking about 80% of the startups fail, or actually the startup was not ready to be a product which will be adding value to unmet need in the marketplace?
So the 80% value actually came from somebody in the MatCon part of the event, and the discussion was basically more focused as how businesses are evolving now. So what we need to understand is, if we talk about technology space, a lot of startups that are being done by people who are themselves developing the products. When you talk about responsibility of who is responsible and who can define whether your product is MVP, it is usually the client who himself decides until he's part of an incubation part. Like, for example, what Pravash does. At an incubator level, there is a team of people who basically come from different industries. And like I said, it is very important to have somebody from that industry's experience to become part of that startup on a consultation level, on a mentorship level, so that they are able to help them and define what will work and at what point of time you should go to the market. But a majority of startups actually fail, in my understanding and in my experience, because they are always in too much of hurry to go to the market. Because a lot of people just do startups from a perspective of a gameplay. So I'll just give you one example. I met somebody from IIT in Bangalore a couple of months back, and this guy came to me and said, I have a valuation of $5 million or something like that, and it's on an idea stage. So I will make a web page tomorrow, I will give you the web page, we'll launch tomorrow, if you give me a 5 million valuation. So a lot of people actually are themselves in a hurry to go to the market because their intention is to just raise funds rather than making something valuable and something reasonably right. So it's a very gray area in that kind of a thing, why startups fail. There could be a number of reasons to that.
Follow-on comment on there. Say, in last 10 years, should we move away from this concept of MVP? I don't think so, which have minimal word in it, have anything to do to disrupt the market. because you are putting the minimal effort actually to a product to make somehow look it's viable or it will survive.
Yes, you're right. But you also have to look at when do we go into MVP. So if we are doing a startup or we get early stage association with them, we don't talk about MVP. We talk about making a product right. And then when we think it's right, it's perfect, is then when we go to the market. MVP usually comes when there is a third guy who is investing into a company where the owners or the entrepreneurs themselves have no stake in it, and he has invested in money. So for him, it is important to know whether I'm investing in the right stage, because a lot of investment deals happens in a way where there is a sequential investment that happens. So that is where majorly the MVP play comes in. If that doesn't happen, if I am investing, for example, if I have my own startup and I am investing my own money, I will always want to make it perfect before going to the market.
Listen, MVP is minimal viable product. And
Correct.
think about it's not against you, it's actually in favor of you. Because when you develop a product, it takes time, it takes money.
Yeah.
If you would develop a perfect product and then go out in the market, and if the market does not need it, you would lose everything. In the development, in startup world, it's always about iterations. So developing a minimal viable product that you would go and test it with few people. That's why we have alpha, beta launch, then have with close family and friends, and then with let's say first 1,000 users. Because from the actual response, you will be able to iterate the product and not what you think is best. From your own concept, that this is the best product. You have to develop the product from the market. So that's why people say that, if you are an entrepreneur, it's better to develop only MVP and try and test and launch it before you go out and spend a year in developing the perfect product, which probably no one would need. And then you would have wasted all your money or time and then try to raise the money in the market. If the minimal viable product shows you some signs of traction, market need, then, investors feel the confidence, you feel confident, and then you can further put in the effort, time, and money.
So I will be.
Sorry, sir. You've been
just-
asking questions since morning. I've been noticing
Can
that.
I just make one comment?
Yeah.
I am Dr. Buch from Baroda, Gujarat, India. I am a user. I am a medical doctor. I am a user, and I have been using all my OPD patient data from 1988 are online. So that is one, that penetration is required, but not many are doing it. Second thing is that we hold a healthcare IT conference, HITCon, and in that we had invited 10 healthcare startup teams. And out of that, the first one that we gave as a jury, the prize, those boys from Gulbarga, 4 engineers, they came and they told me after a year that, sir, with this certificate and a minimal amount of appreciation of 30,000 rupees, they have done a business of $200,000 from the world. Now this is a team from Gulbarga. So what I'm trying to tell you is, I am on the ethics committee in a university with 30,000 students. So the ethics part, the data part, the computation part, the AI part, and those boys have done the artificial intelligence in ECG diagnostics. So what they have done is 200 ECG diagnosable diseases, 98% correct compared to DM cardiology in any part of the world or country. And where did they get the money maximally from unexpected corner? Is from the cruises all over the world. Because a patient getting a chest pain on the cruise and has to be shifted by air, and that is costing them, one sortie was costing $15,000. And now it is one ECG machine which you can hold in your hand. Even I have purchased. What I'm telling you is that all things are happening. Let us not be pessimistic that doctors do not use. The percentage is very small. But to defend everybody, the ethics part is very correct. The artificial intelligence in dengue, without doing a dengue antigen, is helping us a lot. We are working with biotechnology. What you are talking about when you are starting new, it is incubator. The newborn child is in incubator. We have pediatric intensivists. But once it comes out of the incubator, my team, 22 programmers, 2 of them are currently in Kobe this week. It will get over 6 weeks. That is accelerator. So what I mean is that all these things are important to discuss and then implement after the conferences are over. The positive results are available, and I don't know of a single doctor in India or in USA who has not taken an ECG and has earned $200,000. But these 4 boys have earned. So if the idea has to be strong, the implement has to be consistent, and it should not be greed. It should be willingness to help the society and the patients. Thank you.
That's a very good note. We'll conclude the panel on this note. Thank you so much, Doctor.
I'd just like to make a comment. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice today. I'm Mona Hyatt from Nexus Technology, and I guess I'm going to concur with my learned colleague over there, and I just wanted to make a comment about ethics. If I was an investor sitting in your shoes, I certainly wouldn't want to be interested in investing in a healthcare organization that hadn't fulfilled its due diligence or had done their homework around R&D. And actually, the whole point of investing in a healthcare organization is that you have a series of clinicians who are going to be taking clinical accountability for the startup and what they're going to be delivering. So actually, I wouldn't want our investor to be getting involved in the ethics to a minutiae degree. Part of what you're investing in is the expertise of the company, not just the product of what the company is delivering. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this amazing session. This is the end of the Q&A. Thank you, our panelists. A big round of applause.